Ever since Dio was defeated back in Stardust Crusaders, the universe of JoJo's Bizarre has still been seeing the effects of his legacy. First, his stand arrows caused some chaos in Part 4, then Part 5 was all about Dio's son, Giorno, and now in Part 6 we're seeing the most direct effect of Dio's actions. In Stone Ocean, the main antagonist is Father Enrico Pucci, a follower of Dio's who wants to carry out his plans, and Pucci may just be the most powerful villain we've seen yet thanks to his stand. Or should we say, stands. This video is going to be all about Enrico Pucci and his stands, particularly the final form of his stand, Made in Heaven. Obviously, expect spoilers for the ending of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stone Ocean. So, like we teased earlier, Pucci actually gains multiple forms to his stand throughout the story. Now, this isn't a new concept to JoJo. Back in Part 4, Koichi's stand Echoes had 3 forms, each one improving on its abilities, and later in the manga, Part 7's protagonist had a similar evolving stand called Tusk, with 4 different forms. But Pucci's stands are a bit different from those. Echoes and Tusk both appear to evolve naturally through improving their skills, helping their user in moments of need. But Pucci intentionally makes his stands evolve. At first, his stand is called Whitesnake, which, like everything else in JoJo, is a music reference. In this case, it's named after an 80s hair metal band. Whitesnake was already a pretty overpowered stand. It had the ability to separate users from their stands and was even able to remove Star Platinum from Jotaro. Later, Pucci gets a major power-up after he merges with the Green Baby, a weird little homunculus made out of one of Dio's bones. After Pucci merges with the baby, things start to get weird. His body physically changes, and he even gains the iconic Joestar birthmark. But what changes the most is his stand. Pucci's stand now has a new form, called Sea Moon, named after a Paul McCartney song. It looks very similar to Whitesnake, only with some green pieces on top of it, emphasizing how it's been fused with the Green Baby. Sea Moon has a simple but powerful ability, that being the ability to invert the gravity of whatever it touches. We first see this when Pucci arrives at the Cape Canaveral and uses Sea Moon, which more or less causes the entire area to turn sideways for what appears to be several miles around. Jolene and her group are forced to climb the building like some kind of parkour course thanks to how everything has been tilted. Then things take a turn for the horrific when Sea Moon attacks Jolene's hand, and the inverted gravity literally turns it inside out. Later during the same fight, Pucci's stand undergoes a second evolution. This was his true goal. By using the gravitational pull of the new moon, Sea Moon becomes its final form, Made in Heaven. It's a pretty weird looking stand, resembling what we can only describe as a reverse centaur, a human upper body with the front half of a horse below the waist. Considering how Pucci is a priest, the design may be a reference to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Interesting fact about the name of Made in Heaven. During Stone Ocean's initial serialization, it was actually named Stairway to Heaven, after the famous Led Zeppelin song. But it was changed in the volume release to Made in Heaven, named after an album and song by Queen. Honestly, we think that Made in Heaven fits better thematically speaking. Obviously, there's the whole heaven thing that fits with Pucci's religion and his plan to attain heaven. But Stone Ocean is the climax to the original JoJo timeline, and the album Made in Heaven was the final Queen album. Plus, the song Made in Heaven was originally by Freddie Mercury for a solo album. Later, the vocals were reused, and Queen added new instrumentation as a tribute to Mercury. So that fits with Pucci fulfilling Dio's legacy. We could just be looking too deep into the name, but it's fun to try and find meaning in stuff like this. Now, what does Made in Heaven actually do? Well, a major motif in the JoJo series is that most of the main villains have stands that can control time in some way. Dio could stop time, Kira was able to reverse time, and Diavolo could skip ahead in time. Using Made in Heaven, Pucci is able to speed up time. The time acceleration only seems to affect inorganic matter, so plants and animals aren't affected but everything else is. Machines rapidly speed up, liquids freeze and dry quickly, and the sun becomes a blur in the sky. It's downright apocalyptic. To make matters worse for our heroes, Made in Heaven also makes Pucci nearly impossible to hit. The stand's time acceleration also essentially gives Pucci super speed. Now, if you've stuck with us this far and still haven't seen how Stone Ocean ends, this is your last chance, because we're about to get into some serious ending spoilers. Still here? Okay. In the final battle between Jolene's group and Father Pucci, Pucci actually manages to win. For a moment, anyway. Using his own intellect and Made in Heaven's insane power, Pucci is able to get the upper hand and even outsmart Jotaro's Star Platinum time stop. Made in Heaven moves so fast that it makes the time stop essentially useless, since by the time Star Platinum has stopped time, Pucci has already done exactly what he wanted. For example, Pucci uses a variation on Dio's knife trick from Part 3. He throws a bunch of knives at Jolene right as Jotaro pauses time, forcing Jotaro to choose between stopping Pucci or saving his daughter. In the end, Pucci is able to kill Hermes, Anasui, and even Jotaro, which forces Jolene to run away with Emporio. Jolene knows that brute force alone won't be enough to stop Pucci, so she ties Emporio to a dolphin and sends him off while she stays behind to hold off Pucci. Jolene knows that she isn't strong enough to stop Made in Heaven, but wants to give Emporio the chance he needs. After Jolene is dead, Pucci is able to use Made in Heaven to achieve his ultimate goal. He speeds up the universe to an extreme degree until the universe resets itself. Everyone who is still alive before the reset is still alive, and everyone who has died is replaced with new versions of themselves. This new world is what both Dio and Pucci wanted to make. In the brand new universe, everyone's lives are already predetermined, and they know it. They know exactly what they're about to do before they do it, and there's nothing they can do to change it. The idea of fate as a force that seemingly can't be changed goes back to the end of Part 5, with Mista trying to save Bruno even though Rolling Stones already predicted his death. For just a moment, it seems like Pucci's won. But for him, there's just one problem: Emporio. As long as he's alive, Pucci can still be defeated. Pucci knows this and activates Made in Heaven again, chasing after Emporio and trying to kill him. In this new world, Pucci is the only one who can change the course of fate, so he has to personally kill Emporio. But in a twist of irony, it ends up being one of Pucci's own stands that does it to him. You see, back before he died, Whitesnake had actually ejected Weather Report's stand disc, and Emporio now has the disc. But due to fate being unchangeable now, Emporio can't put the stand disc in his own arm. The only one who can change fate is Pucci, since he's essentially God in this new universe. When Pucci tries to punch Emporio, he accidentally ends up pushing Weather Report's stand disc into his head. This new action being created changes fate and is what lets Emporio stop Pucci. Using Weather Reports, Emporio creates an atmosphere of 100% oxygen, which is deadly to humans. Pucci struggles to escape as the oxygen slowly kills him. Even as he dies, Pucci keeps speeding up time and trying to stop Emporio. But in the end, Pucci dies and he is essentially erased from the timeline, along with Made in Heaven. This creates another alternate universe, only this time, things are different. In the new timeline, Jolene, Anasui, Weather, and Hermes are no longer prisoners, and Jolene seems to have a better relationship with her father. A throwaway line from Hermes even shows that her sister is still alive in this universe. Every action taken by Pucci has been undone, and the story ends with Emporio befriending this world's version of Jolene. So after over 100 years, Dio's legacy has finally been defeated. This is essentially the end of the original JoJo's Bizarre Adventure timeline. Parts 7 and 8 of JoJo both take place in an alternate universe, which, somewhat confusingly, is completely unrelated to the universe being reset in Stone Ocean. But even though Stone Ocean was the end of the original timeline, it still was one amazing journey. And seeing the amazing and terrifying power of Made in Heaven was an incredible way to cap things off. So what do you think of Stone Ocean's ending? And do you think the next 2 parts of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure will have a good adaptation?